Dr. Amruta is a technology executive with 20 years of experience building and scaling enterprise and consumer products like Google Cloud, Ads, Search, and Chrome. Her domain expertise is in data science, and she's passionate about empowering businesses and elevating lives with responsible use of AI. We also have with us Suchit Puri, Head of AI Solutions for Google Cloud. Suchit leads Google Cloud's AI and security solutions delivery teams in India. His extensive technology background encompasses the development of enterprise and consumer-facing products, high-level consulting for internationally recognized companies, and the successful leadership of his own startup venture in the advertising analytical sector. Thank you so much, Suchit and Amruta, for joining us today. Looking forward to this session.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I'll use a hand mic if. Can you hear me? Looks like you can. All right. So let me just start by saying I'm really excited to be here, looking at the whole range of social impact and social innovation that is happening in this space. It's very inspiring to really be a part of that story. And I think each one here in the audience should really feel proud that you are able to contribute and really be a part of that growth story for impacting so many millions of lives. Now, you kind of heard our intros, we really come from a very, very strong tech background. Usually we talk at geek conferences. The typical audience is developers, and we go into the details of, why does this code not work and how do we debug this and that. This time, Suchit and I really had to switch gears and say, we need to think more from an idea point of view. Technology is no longer limited to the technology domain. AI is very much mainstream now, and it has to be a part of every sector, every function, every role. So we really want to make sure that AI is democratized and everyone has access to AI capabilities, everyone has access to education on AI, and everyone is able to use that AI for the betterment of their life. So that is really the core value and principle with which a lot of us at Google are approaching AI, is to not think of it from our tech roles, but more from how can we help other people in the different sectors to start using AI for their good. And that's specifically what we are looking at in this session. All right? So very quickly, okay. I'll share the agenda for today, but very quickly, we are going to do a quick introduction to generative AI, what it's like, what are the different ways where we are seeing it working, where it's not working. And then in the second half, we will talk about applications for social impact. So there are many, many, many places where AI can be used without developers, without AI knowledge. It's very, very lightweight, ready to use AI forms, but people need to know about it, and people need to be able to think about it. So those are the two things we will do. But before we begin, I just wanted to give you a glimpse of what AI is capable of doing. Maybe, Suchit, you can play the video.
At Google, AI isn't a tomorrow thing. It's a today thing. And sure, we can ask for answers to life's tough questions. But today, we can also ask it to do tough things, like ship that wood more efficiently, use satellites to reduce methane emissions, turn DNA into code to make cracker-resistant corn. Huh, cool. We can spot and fill potholes, spot disease earlier, spot asteroids to protect Earth. You can create apps with just words in just hours. Today, Google AI can scan 100,000 lines of code in 2 minutes to spot and fix bugs. It can translate from code to code, and it's one step closer to speaking 1,000 languages, even whale. Today, AI impacts lives for the better and understands the world the way you do. AI spots threats 7 times faster, understands speech sentiment, helps prevent vision loss, predicts weather 10 days out in 2 minutes, translates thousands of pages in seconds, detects lead pipes to keep drinking water clean, eliminates paperwork so care is more human, generates from text, visuals, audio, and video, creates entire worlds from your imagination, creates this thing, that thing, a new thing, the new way. It's cloud.
All right. So apart from the last ad for Google Cloud, everything else that we showed over there are real projects that we have done at Google. We have the capability of speaking and translating more than 1,000 languages. We have the capability of working with very, very large healthcare databases. You saw the DNA and some of the protein folding and all of that structure. We're building chatbots. I'm talking about high-end technology to very, very basic things as well. So we are able to see that impact of AI in every single sector, whether it's energy, whether it is healthcare, agriculture. So I really want to emphasize that no matter which area you're on, in which function you're in, you have an opportunity to really elevate your work, elevate your impact through AI. So today, we're going to have, this is a really long session, so I don't know, people might get bored. But we wanted to split it up into logical parts. So in the first part, we will give you the basics of generative AI. What is generative AI? What exactly is this whole LLM thing? Why do people keep talking about new models every 2 weeks? And just the fundamentals of that. After that, we'll ask you to open your phone or your laptop and try out a few prompts and look at how prompt engineering is working. Then we'll quickly talk about responsible AI. I don't think any session about AI should skip the ethics parts of AI. It is a very, very important aspect. Even when you're implementing in this, you need to keep that in mind fundamentally, is how this is going to scale, how this is going to impact lives. After that, we have a quiz. The quiz is optional, don't worry about it. It is only for people who want to get a skill badge, an accreditation skill badge from Google. We'll pretty much give you the link, and then you can go and do the quiz on your own. The content that we cover here equips you sufficiently to get the skill badge without much effort. So yeah, there's a quiz. And then in the second half, we will specifically look at applications for social good. So what are the applications that we have built at Google, that some of our partners have built with our AI? And then finally, I think this last portion is probably, personally for me, it's the most interesting portion, is that we'll have you sit in groups. We will have you brainstorm ideas for how you are going to be using AI in your domain. And then we're going to have you submit them in a common forum with your name and contact details, if you're comfortable with that, because that will form a database that we'll publish to this whole conference, where people can come and contact you. If someone is interested in that idea, they can come and talk to you about it. Or if you are interested in someone else's idea about AI, they can talk to, you can approach them. I've also talked to Atul Satija, and he said that he's going to take that database and see what else is possible. All right, so I know this conference is about networking. I thought this would be a great way to get like 100 people to network together and get to know what's most interesting to you. Does that sound like a good plan? Yes. All right. Okay. All right. So sometime in 2023, this was a tweet, but this is actually a very, very popular sentiment, that the new hottest programming language is English. You don't really need developers, you don't need data scientists and deep ML experts to do AI anymore. The models have evolved to the point where it's just spoken language. And it actually need not be English. It could also be Hindi or Tamil or Telugu. We do work with most languages now. So, but really, it's the spoken language that computers are now able to process. So the hottest new programming language is the spoken language. All right, so over time, we have seen a lot of interest in LLMs. Very frankly, LLMs have been around for more than 20 years. In fact, it was one of my projects way back when I was in college and I was trying to work on language topic models. It was totally not cool at that time. It took 20 years to come to a point where it has real impact, but that's the nature of real, true research. All right, so let's get quickly started with generative AI foundations. Okay, so this is a loaded slide. You can read it if you want, but I can very quickly tell you what is AI, what is traditional AI, and what is generative AI. All right. Now, artificial intelligence is all about teaching machines to think. Oh, I'm sure you guys all know that. So traditional AI was all about prediction. It was about predictive AI. We sometimes call it predictive AI. Predictive AI means if I tell you that the weather in this place has been this way until yesterday, what will the weather be tomorrow? Okay? It's a really hard question, but it's a prediction question. Or if I tell you that all of these images are cat images, and I show you a new image, and then you tell me whether this is a cat or not a cat. So it has to predict. It has to make that decision, yes or no. Yes cat, no cat. So it is always about making decisions and about making prediction. Now, generative AI is a little different. It is not just about making prediction, it's about generating entirely new content. Right? So it is not making a prediction of a cat or no cat. We are telling it to create a new image of an entirely new cat. And that, so far we always thought that was like human creativity. That is where the creative aspect comes in. And how do you go from this leap of just predicting numbers or predicting images to actually generating new things? So traditional AI, one word, predictive. Generative AI, one word, creative. And that's why the range of things that can now be done with generative AI suddenly come in the domain of content generation. You know, all the marketing blurbs and most of those content copywriting work, AI does a fantastic job at that. It generates not just text or language, it is also very good at generating videos, generating all kinds of media content, generating new protein structures. So think about anywhere where you need creativity, you would use generative AI. Anywhere you need to predict something, you use traditional AI. All right? Okay, now, is generative AI something that is just for artists? No, it is something that we are seeing. It's going to transform every industry, all professionals. Is that like a huge risk? It's going to like, take away jobs and all of that? I would really not take that kind of a view of it. It is a big revolution. It is going to have huge impact. But at the same time, individuals, organizations, even nations that are well equipped to handle this will actually benefit from this wave. All right, so very quickly, let me introduce one model to you. So I'll talk about the Google Gemini model. Just so you know, there are like thousands of models in the industry right now. There's ChatGPT, there's a separate one from Microsoft, there is Gemma, which is open source. There is Llama from Meta. I mean, I can keep going on. Okay, every 2 weeks, there's a new model in the market. I want to specifically talk about Gemini because it has a couple of very, very strong capabilities which can help us with this conversation and the rest of the topic today. So first of all, Gemini is a multimodal model. Anyone knows what is multimodal? Perfect, yes. So multimodal model means that the model can process text, images, video, code, DNA sequences, you name it, all of that together in a single reasoning. Usually, models process each one separately, and then they try to bring it together. But Gemini is actually built as multimodal ground up. It actually changes the capability of what a model can do, mainly because humans don't process things separately. We don't think of this, okay, this is an audio track of what Amruta is saying, and this is what her face looks like. You process it all together when you're trying to interpret the message. And that's why the multimodality of Gemini really brings this strength. Now, the second thing I want to mention is low barrier to entry. So basically, Gemini works with no code, low code, and high code options. Sorry, this is developer language again. This slide was used at the developer forum presentation. But basically, what I'm saying is If you want to write zero code, Gemini will still give you options of using AI without any kind of coding. You don't need to be in tech at all to do this. If you want to do some customization, you can go with a low code option with some basic scripting. Or if you are a deep data scientist, you also have high code options. So it's a low barrier to entry with all the options that you would possibly want. And third, and the most important, it is built with responsibility and safety at its core. We will talk briefly about responsible AI later, so we'll talk about Google's AI principles. AI principles right now vary by country, they vary by organization. So it is not a standard, but I do think Google holds itself to a very high standard here, and we'll discuss a little bit about that later. All right, so I wanted to show you a demo of what multimodality means. Multimodality means you can look at videos, images, ask it questions, things that you can't do just with text or just with audio. We do have a bunch of videos and demos, so.
Okay, let's do some tests. Tell me when you see something that makes sound.
I see a speaker, which makes sound.
What is that part of the speaker called?
That is the tweeter. It produces high-frequency sounds.
Give me a creative alliteration about these.
Creative crayons color cheerfully. They certainly craft colorful creations.
What does that part of the code do?
This code defines encryption and decryption functions. It seems to use AESCBC encryption to encode and decode data based on a key and an initialization vector, ID.
That's right. What neighborhood do you think I'm in?
This appears to be the King's Cross area of London. It is known for its railway station and transportation connections.
Do you remember where you saw my glasses?
Yes, I do. Your glasses were on the desk near a red apple.
What can I add here to make this system faster?
Adding a cache between the server and database could improve speed.
What does this remind you of?
Schrodinger's cat.
All right, give me a band name for this duo.
Golden stripes.
Nice. Thanks, Gemini.
All right, so that was pretty cool, right? Yeah, I think once you start seeing the capability, you have to think differently. Like, what is possible? It knows about maps. It knows about images. It actually knew where you kept your phone or your specs. All those details. So it really shifts the way you can think of applications. What you can do with it is really, really powerful. All right, so I know we were running behind time. I should very quickly move to what is a large language model. This is the piece that will get you your skill badge. So let me go into that. So first of all, language models is not at all a new concept. This is something that we have been using, as I said, for more than 20 years. You must have seen that autocomplete or did you mean feature that we had a long time ago at Google. Well, that was basically a language model. It was a pretty basic language model because all it did was predict the next word in a text string, and that is much easier than what Gemini is able to do today. But fundamentally, language models do exactly that. They use the pattern that they have seen till that point and predict the next token. It literally builds this one token at a time or one word at a time. All right, so I wanted to quickly talk about a couple of different language models. So we have PaLM 2, or PaLM is our text model. So anything to do with text, chat, anything to do with words and language is PaLM. We have Imagine, which is all about images. So generating new images, interpreting images, a lot of image stuff. We have Chirp. Chirp is speech to text or speech to voice to text, understanding spoken language. We have Cody. Cody does coding. And then we have embeddings. Embeddings are basically ways to extend the context of a particular, I need to use non-technical words. Embeddings are basically a way to get new domains into the AI field. So if you want to get DNA, a model for DNA interpretation, you would use embeddings for that, because that's a new context that is not already covered here. So you would bring that new thing through embeddings. And then finally, Gemini actually combines all of them together. So Gemini is probably the most powerful model on Earth at this point. All right. And then the way LLMs work is that they are trained on billions of parameters. Okay, so for example, they're looking not just at the data from one dictionary for say a text. They're looking at all the data, all the text on the internet. They're looking at all the images in Google Maps, for example. Right? So it's really trained on billions of parameters. And that's really the differentiator of how it works so well, is that it has very, very high amount of training data. In fact, every time you chat with ChatGPT or Gemini, it learns from that experience as well. So when you have billions of people sitting and chatting away, it's learning everything. It's a little scary if I put it that way. That's why the responsible AI section is as well. We really talk about how to set the guardrails. All right, so there are different models with different kind of token windows. Right now, Gemini 1.5 has a 1 million token window. By 1 million token window, what it means is that for any word, it is actually looking at 1 million words around that word as context. For any image data point, it's looking for 1 million data points around. It's actually really lot of data to look at. So the context of that particular entity is much larger. Very frankly, you don't need such a powerful model for all your work. For the most of the use cases, very, very lightweight models are sufficient. But this is the highest capability available for you. If you want to, say, do research in drug design or protein folding, then you probably need that one. All right. So how does generative AI work? Well, first of all, there is a concept called as training. And then there is a concept called as testing, obviously training and testing. So on the training side, LLMs use a large amount of data. And this massive amount of data is used to identify patterns, okay? And these patterns are identified using what we call as parameters. Bear with me, this is the only technical slide. Again, just for the folks who want to do the quiz, all right? So they're trained with a high number of data points. They're trained through multiple layers of a neural network. And they are trained to recognize these patterns. Now, there is a default language model that you get with the ones that we have published. But on top of that, what you can build is your own model, right? So for example, you might have a friend group that uses a personal lingo, or you might have a particular dialect of Hindi that is used in certain regions. So you want to train a model for that, you can just do what we call as fine-tuning. You can see that point there, pre-training and fine-tuning. So there is a pre-trained model, and that is fine, but if you want something to work specifically for your domain, you have to do fine-tuning for it. All right, so LLMs really work. They build upon predictive AI by looking at the probability of the next word. What do I mean by that? All right, so if I give you, it was the best of, what do you think should be the next word? Times, okay. Yeah, it is the best of times. Where do you think this is coming from? Anyone? Tale of Two Cities, yes. I was looking for an example that would not be tech, so I found this one. It's from the Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? So if you're looking in the literary context or the default context, probably it was the best of. If I give you that much data, then you know the next word is probably going to be times. And if I give you 1 million words around something, you're going to be much more confident that that's going to be the next word, right? So that's exactly how it's working. It's looking at what has come so far and what is the most likely probability of the next word or the next data point. Now you could tune it to be something completely different. So for example, if you train it on the data for menus, the last line there is menus, okay? Then the answer actually comes as it was the best of chicken. Because the data you trained it on was food menu data. It doesn't have any access to literature at this point. This is a ridiculous example, but really trying to drive home the point that it is learning on the context that you provide. Which means, if your context has bias, it's going to show bias. If your context has problems, it's going to show all the problems. It's really holding a mirror to humanity to, see what you guys are actually doing. All right, I'm going to skip this one. Now coming to applications, all right? So we have a lot of different data. We have text, image, speech. The spelling there is wrong. Structured data, 3D signals, a lot of data that goes into training to form a foundational model. And then on top of that, you can do a lot of different applications. You can do question answering, you can do sentiment analysis, you can extract information, image captioning. We'll talk a little bit more about applications in the second half. All right. Oh, sometimes words have multiple meanings. All right, so bank of a river or money in a bank. So how does it understand all of that? Well, it understands all these things from the context window. And that's why the length of the context window matters so much. Because the meaning of a word, the use of a particular image element, it depends on the context. All right, now sometimes you get strange answers. Simple mathematical questions that Google search used to be able to do, suddenly these models are giving wrong answers. What's wrong? I mean, did we just go back in time? Well, that is because generative AI models have something called as hallucination. By hallucination, we mean that it is being overly creative, and it sometimes generates completely nonsensical, even grammatically incorrect tokens, all right? So usually, these problems happen, we see hallucination quite a lot, okay? So in fact, like if sometimes the level of hallucination you want, it depends on what you're trying to do. It depends on the application. If you're trying to give a medical diagnosis, you don't want it being creative, right? But if you're asking it to write a poetry, you want it to be creative. You want it to do something surprising and unexpected. So again, depending on the application, you might see this kind of creativity is good or bad. Again, it depends on how you're using it. But most of the times when you see hallucinations, if you want to fix it, then there are a couple of problems that typically happen. Hallucinations happen because there's not enough data, or that your data is dirty or noisy. There are too many random things going on in the data maybe. It doesn't have enough context, or it is not given enough constraints. Now the first two problems are data problems. So you can go back and change your data and fix it. Sometimes going back and changing your data is not possible. In that case, you will have to use the other two options of using context or changing the constraints to make that model work for you. All right. So getting the model to work for you correctly is a whole, I would say, art. It's not exactly a fixed science. It's a little bit of an art domain right now. But we'll talk a little bit about that. And can you just move? Just a minute. We'll talk about that and how to get a model to work well for you through the art of prompt design. And for that, I'll have Suchit come over and tell you about how prompting works.
All right, thank you, Amrita. It was quite insightful. I will also try to keep it low tech. This whole area is quite tricky, but feel free to kind of use your phones while we are talking, and you can try probably ChatGPT or Gemini.google.com. Both of them are free to use, and you can probably try and figure out how do you prompt it right? As Amrita said that today English is the new programming language, right? So prompt engineering is asking the right questions to get the right answers. Right, so if you have not used these are some of the examples of the prompts. Help me incorporate a more high protein vegan option in my diet, or help me brainstorm ideas, and help me read 20 books this year, right? So I'm sure you would have tried to ask ChatGPT or Gemini or any other model such kind of prompts. But the trick here is you need to ask the right questions to get the right answers. The models are quite powerful, right? So there are billions of parameters in those models. They have learned the world knowledge, and they've read books, encyclopedias, they've watched videos, but then you need to ask the right question to get your right answer. In fact, what we figured out was that most of the prompts which are being used today are just 9 words. But effectively, anything more than 20 words, if you are trying to explain the model a little bit more, give it a little bit more context, there's a very high probability of getting a better response. Yeah, so the most successful prompts average around 21 words. So next time, keep that in mind. All right. So why is prompt design so important? And I think while there's a lot of things written here, it's just asking or giving your kid, if you have your kids and you're asking a question, it is just showing them that way, right? So here you have to guide the model. You have to reduce the ambiguity. If you are using the word like a manager in a financial services firm versus in a hotel could mean completely different answers, right? So you need to reduce the ambiguity, right? Obviously ensure safety and ethics, and we'll talk about that as well. You can always tell the model that I don't need any answers in so and so areas, or always follow safety and ethics guidelines, and it'll try and make sure that my response follows that, right? And obviously controlling the output diversity, and we'll talk about that. So prompt design is essentially, it's just English, right? So it's just a way of writing English so that your model understands. It is creating a set of prompts so that the model can understand what you're trying to ask, right? So for example, summarize the text or create a graphic for my blog post, right? So if you are able to give it more context, it will be able to give you the right image or the right summary. So it's very important to ask the right question. All right. So these are some of the hacks, right? So whenever you are writing a prompt, you should try and probably start with these 4 areas. The first one is the persona. It sets the stage for the tone and the voice. So you are a UX designer. You are the director of engineering, or you are a math major at MIT. So it tries to understand that I need to make sure that I need to prioritize this, or the answer that I need to give is in context of this persona, right? And then obviously your context, as a context that this is what I want to talk about. This is the text that I want the summary for. This is the video which I need to look my glasses in. So that is the context. And then the task. What is the goal? What are you trying to, what is that you want to get out of as an outcome of that prompt, right? So if you will be as detailed, the better accuracy of the model will be. And then finally, you can optionally also give the format. Format is I need a table, I need bullet points, I need a paragraph, I need an entire research document, and so on. So as it says that you don't need to use all of these, but if you try and incorporate these 4 strategies, you are very likely to get much, much better answers. And these are some of the optional components, right? If you think that your model is not giving you the right answer, it's not able to understand, so you try and give it an example, right? It's called few shot learning, and we'll talk about that. You can follow up. You can even tell the model, think hard. And you'll be surprised that once you do that, you'll start getting right answers. Right? And we'll see an example of that as well. Right? Style and tone and limits, right? So these are the optional components. So here is a sample format, right? So the persona, the context, the task, and the format. I am a Google Cloud account executive. Help me draft a cold outreach email, which is the task, and that's what I want out of that. And the context is that I need to send this to a CEO based on the challenges in the recent month in the women's footwear industry. And then I need to limit it. I don't want it to be like really, really long. Right? So persona, context, task, and format, if you follow that, you will get much, much better results. Okay, so there could be cases wherein the prompt is not working and it's frustrating you, right? So it is such a simple thing that you're asking, and it's such a billion parameter model is not able to give you the right answers. So in that way, there's another technique called as few shot prompting. In few shot prompting, you give an example and a result. So for example, if you are doing categorization, or if you are trying to do a sentiment analysis, so you have certain set of reviews, and you think that this is a positive review, this is a negative review. So when you are asking the model, you can give it some context. You can say that here is an example of the sentiment analysis. So this is the text, this is a positive review, this is the text, this is a negative review. And now, can you give me the sentiment for whatever I'm asking for? So this way, you are trying to lead the model, you're trying to guide the model, and you're also trying to reduce the ambiguity.
So you're providing the data for the model to work with.
Correct.
But
That's
limited data, no?
correct.
Like I'll only be able to give 1 or 2 examples.
So here the context comes into picture, right? So if you have a million context, you can give a lot of examples, right? So it depends the context window, on the context window. So if you think that it's a simple task and you need to give 3 examples, that will work. But if you have a larger context, like for Gemini 1.5, it has 1 million tokens, which means that you can give it a lot of examples and a lot of context. So that can improve your accuracy, and that's why context it becomes important when you're trying to get some serious outcomes out of the model. Right, so here is an example. I love this movie. It's a very, very simple one. And then similarly, the current input is I enjoyed the movie. The review is you're trying to do categorization and classification of the reviews. And you'll be surprised that with just few examples, it is said that with just 2 or 3 examples, it is more powerful than using 100 character prompt or 100 word prompt, right? So try and show examples and lead the way, and this should work for any of a large language model. And this is a very interesting one, and you'll be surprised to see how a small line like let's think step by step can make a huge difference in your response, right? So you can, as you see the standard prompting, you'll see that I have given it a problem, a math problem, and I am getting a wrong output. But just by forcing the model and telling that model to think step by step, it is called chain of thought prompting. So you will try, once you do that, the model breaks down the response that it is giving you into multiple steps, and it tries to remove certain errors while doing that. In fact, you can also mix chain of thought and the few shot prompting, right? So you can say that this is an example of a similar problem I did, a similar finance problem or a math problem or a complex classification problem, and think step by step. And you'll be surprised that such small additions to these models, you can get really, really high results, accurate results. So again, I think this is what the final prompt structure would look like. And if you can follow that, It's the persona, it's the task, it's the chain of thought, the context, the constraints, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, as I said, right, if you need to ask or give the right context and ask the right questions to get the right answer, and that is very important. In fact, few short and chain of thoughts are just two of many. There are, I think, hundreds of techniques of prompt engineering, and there are hundreds of ways to kind of ask or get the right answer out of that model, right? And uh, yes, it could be a hallucination because it is at the end of the day predicting the next word, right? So it thinks that the answer is 27,000, but when we say things step by step, if you look at the model output, it tries to break down that problem into multiple steps. So it tries to break down into simpler set of problems. So it tries to see that it are exactly. So instead of just getting a simple answer out, and this is particularly helpful in math or complex reasoning problems, in case you are asking to explain why the results were like this. All right. So again, these are the type of tasks, right? So you can write, rewrite, convert, summarize, extract, and there are a lot of subtasks to it. Now moving on to a very important area, which is responsible AI. And I think Amrita has been talking about such advancements in the AI, right? And how it is kind of augmenting jobs today, making everybody really more productive. The reality today is that there is no standard definition or checklist for responsible AI or a standard that is followed worldwide. In fact, this paper was published by Harvard, and you see a very complex diagram wherein the responsible or the governance changes based on whom you are speaking to. If you are talking to a government entity, then the responsible AI for them becomes very, very different. How do you prevent propagandas, fake news, right, to be spread using those models? If you're talking to an enterprise, they will say that, okay, I want to reduce hallucinations. I cannot afford any incorrect answers. I'm a financial institution, and that is absolutely not required, right? And so on and so forth. So for now, we don't have any standard definition, but a lot of companies have come together and they are trying to build a standard checklist for responsible AI. And this is what, and now I'll probably present a perspective of Google from a responsible AI perspective. And I just want to let everyone know that these slides are really, really old, right? If you look at this and the next slide, responsible AI in Google has been in place since 2018, much before Gen AI, much before AI. And as soon as we started using AI in our products like Gmail, search, and others, we felt that there is a need to make sure that anything that we release goes through a check, a process check for responsibility, a responsible AI. And for us, responsible AI is fairness, accountability, explainability, and transparency. There are a lot of other areas around these, but this is what we primarily focus on. So the product, and we'll see that, at the end of the day, responsible AI is not just for governance. It is also to make your products better and be able to, the products to be able to serve a more diverse audience. And we'll see how can responsible AI help in that. So these are our Google AI principles that we've been following since last 6 years. Be socially beneficial, avoid creating or reinforcing unfair biases, be built and tested for safety, and so on. Another very interesting area is the section on the right, that areas that we will not pursue. The areas that we will not pursue are the ones that are likely to cause overall harm. Principal purpose to direct injury, surveillance, violating international accepted norms, and and the ones that intervenes international law and human rights. So while it is important to understand that what your model should be doing, as an organization, it is also important to see what things you should not foray into. And once you have that clarity, anything that you are delivering as part of an organization, it becomes really simple, because now any product that you are building goes through that cycle, right? Any product, if tomorrow you're building a product and you are trying to use an AI, you have a set of guiding principles that you should follow. And today it is just not nice to have, right? Responsible AI is also successful AI. And let's see by an example. First is that by building responsible AI into your products, you are building a competitive advantage. You are able to reach an audience, and you are able to serve an audience in a more diverse way. Let's see as an example here. So this is a very interesting stat, and this is not from the this is not from India, but this is from the US. That female drivers were 47% more likely to be severely injured in an auto incident between 1998 and 2008. Do you know the reason why was this happening? Exactly. So till 2008 in the US, the dummies that were used were only male dummies. So they were not able to build the kind of protection for all the genders, right? And that is what building inclusively or building responsibly means. This is another example. Let's say that you give an AI model to give me tags, or what are you seeing in that image, right? And it gives you wedding and ceremony, because it's a traditional American, let's say, wedding. But when I ask the same model that give me the labels here, it will just say, if it has not seen a diverse set of data, and if it is not built responsibly, it will give me these tags. A person or people, they are just two people standing next to each other, right? And that is why building inclusively and responsibly, it is not just a need, it is just how you're able to reach your audience in a much more personalized way. Again, this is another example of skin tones, right? So when you are building image models, or you are building classification models, if you are not able to detect or represent all the skin tones correctly, your model will only work for a subset of people, right? So while you are building your products, you're building your image models, classification models, you need to make sure that the data it sees is diverse enough to cater to a global audience, or all of your audience. And trusting AI systems remains the biggest barrier to adoption for enterprises and companies, right? How do you know that it is giving you the right set of results, right? It could be hallucinations, it could be something else. But if you know that your products have incorporated responsible AI principles, you've tried to train it on a diverse set of data, and you're continuously improving it, that kind of barrier reduces, right? Again, these are some of the examples. The industry is learning, right? It is not, nobody has figured out what a perfect model which always acts responsibly looks like. In fact, if we go to the first screen, wherein responsible AI, AI governance, AI ethics, they kind of change based on whom you are talking to. So it is an evolving area, it is an evolving field, a lot of research is going on, but you need to make sure that your prompts, your applications, your models are kind of using these principles before you kind of take it to your audience. I'll skip this, and then this is an interesting slide, because this tells you if you are an organization and you want to build AI responsibly, which areas should you kind of incorporate that. And you'll be surprised to see that responsible AI is kind of integrated into all of, from defining the problem to monitoring your results, right? Unless all of these, all of these stages have responsible AI built into this, your product will not really cater to a diverse set of audience. And now over to the quiz. So I think for the quiz, what all of you can do, or probably if you can remember the short link, it is bit.ly and Charcha 2024 AI, and it takes you to a page wherein you can complete the quiz. A lot of information that we've kind of spoken here, you will be able to pass close to 5 courses and earn a skills badge. So feel free. Do you want, should we give time or? Okay. Okay. So you can probably take the picture and complete it once you've done, and for every course that you complete, you will get a skills badge. Okay. Sorry. Let me try and pull this screen. This is what it should open. Okay, okay. Sorry. So it should take you to all of these courses. All of these courses are free, and you should be able to pass a very quick 3 or 4 question exam, or not a quiz. It's a quiz, not an exam actually. And then you will be able to get a badge like this. All right. Now over to more interesting use cases for
Yeah. So I would encourage all of you to at least take a picture. The material that we covered in the first half actually qualifies you to pass the quiz really easily. Also, it's an official Google skill badge. It's not something fake that we made up. It's a real thing. You could post it on your LinkedIn, or I don't know, whatever you want to put it on your resume, but you would have the foundations of Gen AI skill badge. Just so you know that link actually has 5 courses in it. Out of the 5, we've only covered 2, so you'll get 2 skill badges. But if you want to go deeper and cover more topics, you can there is also training material there. For the first 2 quizzes, like, you can go straight to the quiz and be done. For the rest, if you want to review some of this material, you can watch videos. It's actually a really good resource. It's free. You just need a Gmail account to log in, and you should be able to get that. It will also... Yes, you cannot download it, but it's always there. You can always keep going back to it whenever you want. Yeah. It will also recommend future courses for you. So we're just getting you started on a learning path. And then from there, you can decide if you want to go into other domains or you want to go deep on certain topics, you can take it from there. All right, I really think that the learning journey is sometimes very individual. So what we covered was very fundamental, and from here you can decide how you want to proceed. I would highly encourage all of you to continue learning in the AI space because, we all need to be students at this time. We all need to be learning and really, really refreshing our skills. So this is a good start. it would be different. I mean, think about it. We said, if you remember the two keywords, traditional AI predictive, generative AI creative, right? So typically, if you ask the same questions to 3 different people, will you get the same answer? Yes and no, right? If it's a very factual kind of question, like, does the earth revolve around the sun or something, you'll probably get factual answers. Although with humans, I don't know. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's the flavor. It's like, it's creative. So if you ask a question that is opinionated, you're going to get all sorts of opinions and stuff like that. And as you said, it depends on the training data as well. So.
So two questions. One is when you showed that graph that was Gemini, ChatGPT 4, and then something else, and then you had.
Right, Claude and
Right.
Gemini 1.5. Yeah.
So most of us using the ChatGPT free version.
Right.
If you compare the tool from ChatGPT 3 and Gemini, what are the major differences there? Second, the Gemini is not open to all the organization accounts and all the Google Workspaces account as of now.
It is open. It is now open. Yeah.
I just tried to
Really?
log into my organization account and it says it's not available right now. So then I switched to my personal account and I could use it.
But I mean, it depends on your organization can even disable it for you.
No, I'm yet.
Oh. Okay. All right. No, that
So yes.
addresses it.
So I think there are two.
So there is a free. You can just use your personal Gmail account
Yes.
and go to Gemini.
Google NGOs have a free account, G Suite.
Yes. Yes.
And a lot of
So if
products
you
on
go
G
to
Suite free,
gemini.google.com and use your
a lot of these do not allow you to.
Yeah, the Google for not-for-profits, I think
Yeah.
you've not added Gemini.
okay, so you have to use your personal ID is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be the case.
Start with the personal one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's
I think
a
it's
little
good
bit of a
feedback.
launch timeline thing. So initially it was launched only in the US, then it launched globally, but it's launched for personal accounts, and it's really a rolling out thing. But I would say that start with the personal account, and then you can take it from there.
And how's it different from ChatGPT free? Like what are the major differences?
First of all, Gemini is multimodal, so that really makes a difference. If you're processing different kinds of data, it works much better. I think sometimes it's a little bit of a personal preference in terms of, especially for text. These days language models for text are getting very standardized. You get lots of nice options, lots of good options, but it's a little bit of a personal taste question. So you can do that. Most of the times with a little bit of prompting, you should be able to get the result that you want. With ChatGPT or with Gemini,
See,
both work
yeah,
really well.
It's a difficult one because it's not a apples to apples comparison, right? It is the model, you are training your model on a different set of data, and then you are teaching the model to answer these questions, right? So both the tools or all the tools have seen some data and they have seen fine tuning. So when
It's like
somebody
asking, do you want NDTV or Republic TV? Like, you decide which one you want.
yeah, so it is contextual. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Since we spoke about testing for different users and you have a presentation, in Google, what all is happening to make that inclusive and loyal? By that I mean there have been a lot of research about and observations about say like how the developer bias also creeps in when making the models and how I guess social scientists or social development professionals being involved in the decision making in tech at Google. How does it look like?
So there are entire teams of lawyers, in addition to, of course, teams which have social sensitivity. Like, first of all, creating a global product with the same responsible, it's really hard. Okay, these value systems are very, very specific to locations, to communities. But we do extract some very standard values that can still be shared as Google's values. And I want to emphasize, we quickly just showed you that list, but there's a lot of research gone into making that list. First of all, like you said, social scientists and lawyers involved. We're also working with governments. We're working significantly. We work with the EU for their new law that they were coming up with. We're working with the US, we're working with the Indian government, because it's really important that whatever we are trying to do as responsible AI is not just something that we enforce at our level, but also that it is recognized by governments.
Correct. No, absolutely. And I think it's not an easy job, or it's not an easy answer, right? Everybody, I think we also went through a cycle wherein we were generating images that were too diverse, right? Because we kind of took it really, really far. So it depends. It's an art, I would say. And it also depends on the type of data that you are using to train that model, right? How diverse that data is, and what is the context. That is, if somebody in Europe is asking a question, he's expecting that the model should understand my context. Or if I am in Germany, then it should show me a German Christmas, right? If I am from India asking, or it could be an Indian state, right? So it also is very contextual, and um, it's a difficult problem. So you kind of always, the first thing is that always work on these guiding principles to source the data, to make sure that your data is kind of as diverse and it can cater to your audience.
I've seen over the years there's been a lot of different changes in the search. Now, when you're putting in a search question, it automatically tries to locate you where you are from and then give you an
Exactly. So
answer.
that's the context you are
That's
giving
the
to the
context.
search.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So I think models today, we are just getting started, right? So the model, you have to really do prompt engineering and use techniques to explain that model. I think as models improve, they'll be able to automatically understand the context, like you were saying, right? And it'll be like magical, right? It understood that who you are, what's your persona.
Scary? Yes.
All right. I think let's move on to the next section. I believe there's going to be some Menti link for posting more questions. I just want to be sensitive on time because we have a whole entire section to go through. All right. So coming to applications for social good. So this is going to be an interactive session. I'll start with some examples for the to just inspire the conversation for what is possible, what we have done so far, and then it's really going to be up to each one of you to brainstorm. We'll put you in groups so that you have some person to talk to. I also feel conferences are great when we get to talk to people instead of just the speaker and quiet audience. So we'll do a little bit of that, and then we'll take questions at the end of it. Perhaps we can show the mentee at that time. All right. Oh, there's one more video. So let me start with some examples where we have done quite a bit of work on. So Google has been in AI for more than a decade now, and this is some of the work that we have had impact with.
No person needs to be able to cut the chainsaw at a kilometer away. So we're actually using an open source machine learning tool that can record the sound, and it can send a real-time alert to the rangers to notify off deforestation. We train computer vision models to monitor the major source of emissions in the world.
Pollution levels become very high, and computer science has a role to play to create solutions.
One of the most important variables during a crisis is reliable information to understand exactly what areas are going to be affected. We can then send those forecasts to individuals using search, maps, and ad-drone notifications.
Imagine a system that integrates census data, poverty data, and overlay that with disaster data. Our maps will help you directly target the areas with the highest need.
We developed a reading app for children so that their children can learn at their own pace.
Trying to learn more than this time.
Now loves to read.
Open Health Tech is a suite of open source components for building next generation healthcare apps, secure and adaptable to different healthcare settings.
One of the complications of diabetes is diabetic retinopathy. It causes blindness. So we were able to train a model to read these images so people who did not have access now have access.
All right. So those were a couple of ideas for what you can do with some of Google's products. Now, what were the different products or the different modes that you saw? You know, can you name some of them? Speech to text, yes. What else? Translator, yes. Image to text, yes. What else? Geo, yes. So just so you know, we've generally seen that when we go to more economically deprived regions, the geo data becomes incredibly important because not everything is physically mapped. In fact, whenever you're trying to connect anything virtual, anything in the internet world to something on the ground, usually the geo data is what is most useful. And I just want to highlight that Google Maps data is available, you know, through our platform for building applications, for doing a lot of these good things. In fact, even in countries where there are no clear addresses, we have these unique codes that can identify a latitude, longitude in a location that can be used for some of these things. Geo also has a lot of data about climate, about weather patterns, about rain patterns. A lot of geo data is very useful. We've generally seen that NGOs that are trying to work in locations where there's not a lot of connectivity and things like that can still use our geo data. So whenever you are thinking about your applications, just keep that in mind, that AI is not just text or speech. It is also about geo data that you can put into the Connect. I don't know if you saw a lot of people holding phones. So Android also has a huge arm which focuses on making things available with low internet connectivity, offline with no internet connectivity. So Android also has a whole platform. There's YouTube. YouTube has a lot of applications in the education space. I know everyone just wants to watch like fun videos or something, but it actually has a lot of impact with Google for Classrooms and just in educating people. So when you're thinking about AI, don't limit yourself to just language models because that's the skill badge you got. Think about it from the broader perspective. There is YouTube, which has AI. There is Maps, which has AI. There is Android. We've seen these three products have very, very high penetration and very high impact in low-income areas. All right, now I want to add a few more examples over here to show what is possible. So we have worked, I'm taking 3 examples. I'm showing you examples for AI for healthcare, AI for language, and AI for agriculture. All these 3 are projects that we have done for the Indian audience. All right, so first of all, we have been able to use Vision AI to do eye scans, all right? And these eye scans actually have a lot of different, it's not just about measuring your, whether you're myopic or something, but there is something called as diabetic retinopathy that looks at the image of the retina and predicts your probability of getting diabetes. And AI is now able to predict that using just your regular smartphone. Okay, you don't need special equipment. If anyone anywhere in some village has a smartphone, has a decent camera, they can take that image, they can upload it. I mean, think about the impact, right? Healthcare can now go to every village, to every person where that smartphone can function. Another example is, again, these images can be used to predict cardiovascular risk. Again, related to the eye. I'm not into healthcare personally, so this was really very, very surprising for me to see is that there is a lot of connection. When it comes to images and healthcare, there's a lot of things that can be done. And AI is getting increasingly better at predicting and understanding what these risks are. In fact, we are seeing a lot of startups in this space. We're seeing a lot of startups in this space in healthcare globally. There are 2 flavors of startups. I'll just share a little bit of information apart from the slides that we have. So the first kind of startups actually look at this. How do you take healthcare that is right now available only in these big city centers to every corner and every nook and corner in developing countries? So that is one theme, which is what you see here. And the second theme that we are seeing is that how do you move from just treatment-based healthcare to preventative healthcare and getting that preventative healthcare at scale. So for both of these applications, again, it's a very, very rich and ripe space for NGOs and for startups to come in and fill the gap. We're seeing a lot of movement that AI is making possible. I think benchmarking is always a very, very sensitive skill. Um, for the latest data, you should look up the paper. There's a blog and a paper published on it, so you should look it up, right? Yes, yes. So mental health and AI, it's not in India right now, but in the US and in more developed countries, we have seen people using some of these conversational skills for therapy. And therapy, it's actually a very, very hot market for startups right now. But it could be very good scope for to also launch in the Indian market. I think India right now, there's not that much understanding of going to get help and things like that. So. Oh, is it? Okay, good to hear. Good to know that. Because it is still artificial intelligence that does the image scan. The difference here is that you don't need any advanced images now. You can use your cell phone. Just pick up any smartphone over here. But machine learning is artificial intelligence, isn't it? I would take that with a grain of salt. I will tell you that these things were not possible 10 years back. If you are trying to look at the resolution of the image and trying to get the predictability at that level, it was not possible. No, no, no. It is because of algorithmic constraints. I'm happy to get into it. I've been working on this for 20 years. So happy to talk about it. I think the factor that changed it was essentially the number of parameters on which the model is trained. We have not trained models on billions of parameters before this. And that really shifts the ability of AI to predict better, to generate better. So that is the seismic shift that we are seeing, is the number of parameters. And like you said, to do processing for billions of parameters, you need the hardware. So both of that together, the power is multiplied like 1,000,000 times, and what we see today is actually implementable. I almost feel like it's an idea whose time has come, because finally we have all the layers. The hardware is there, the software is there, the reach is there. So the idea may have been there 40 years back, but now it is actually like you can actually do this on the ground today. And you won't need ML data scientists to do it. Anyone can go and implement it. So that's the beauty. All right, I should not be taking questions right now because there's quite a bit of content. We'll park questions for later. We do have 15 minutes at the end for that. All right, there are a couple of other examples. So I think we're working with, again, these are NGOs, and we're working with pregnancy-related healthcare and making sure that people have access to the right kind of information. So the second theme that you can think about is information, getting the right information to the right people at the right time. One of the things that we were doing during COVID, during COVID, if you think about it, information was constantly changing. Even government regulation norm was very, very local. The rule applies only to this particular suburb in Delhi and not to Gurgaon or some such thing. So how do you handle information that is changing rapidly, that is very local and yet global and all of that? These kinds of problems can be very well handled by AI and disseminated at scale. So whenever you're thinking about information, you can think about AI. Well, from information, I should talk about language. So we are collaborating with Indian Institute of Science on a couple of different projects. These are actually government projects. There's Bhashini, which is open sourced language translation mission. There is Vani, and then there is also other uh, collaborations where we're looking at speech samples. I think India doesn't just have 30 languages, or whatever official languages, it's actually thousands of languages and dialects. And we also see people speaking Hinglish, which is Hindi plus English, or whatever other combinations people might have. So we have to be able to handle all of those combinations, not just a single language, not just a single dialect. So this is a really, really good project. I feel that the applicability of our tools in developing areas, this is going to be the key. Unless you're able to use the right language and connect, this won't work. So another dimension for all of you to think about is language. So images, language, information. Okay, I want to touch upon a slightly different example. So whenever someone is trying to, a farmer is trying to get some kind of a loan or some kind of even government help to start off with a slightly new patch of land, they're trying to usually predict the ability of that farm to generate that produce before they get a loan sanctioned or before they get. So there's a lot of these questions of where the farm is, what kind of water supply is available, this and that. This data is not always available. Now the good news is that Google Maps and previously Google Earth actually has collected so much data about the mapping of the world that that data combined with some images, you can get very, very good prediction for what is the capability of that land, what is probably going to grow really well over there, what is going to be the yield of that land, how much money you will be able to make out of that, and what kind of loan you could get sanctioned for it. So it is really about connecting all these different data sources, and this is one real project that has launched to help farmers with this kind of decision making. Now, do you realize that this data is all there? I mean, Google Maps knows about this one aspect. Someone knows about what crops grow where. But this AI tool is able to bring together that maps data, the images data, the text data, all of it, and then intelligently answer questions on top of it or make decisions on top of it. So that is really the beauty of that AI, is that the data may be sitting somewhere, but to be able to make sense of all of it together and have an actual impact. And this is really the kind of stuff that I'm hoping that people in this room will come up with, is because at the end of the day, it's the story of the person. It's understanding what the problem is and where you want to apply these tools. Oh, in fact, we have a video that talks about flood forecasting, reliable flood forecasting.
Floods claim thousands of lives, disrupt millions, and cause significant financial damage worldwide. Google Research has developed AI-based flood forecasting models that can generate accurate river flooding forecasts up to 7 days in advance on a global scale, even in areas where data is scarce. This use of AI technology marks a significant advancement in predicting flood events globally. The hydrologic model is trained on publicly available geophysical and meteorological data, such as soil
flood forecasting project started in India for the Bihar government in 2018. And it was taken to the world, and it was first built in India and then taken to the world, uh, amongst many other products as well.
Actually, we are seeing that happen a lot, is that we are building um, products, projects, all of these things for India, and we are seeing that building for this developing economy actually helps us take it to a lot of other countries very rapidly. Usually when we build it for US and then we try to scale it, it doesn't go beyond because it's a very specific kind of economy. So India is actually one of our country of focus at Google, specifically for some of these areas. All right. Okay, that was the last video. I promise you no more videos. But I hope that helps inspire some of the thinking of what is possible. So I think you pretty much saw which was what was in this video. So you can do flood forecasting. This is also not all governments use it, but some do. I think
Correct. So
it is a state government.
yeah, I think we started, and we partner with governments and share this data. I think it is probably then up to them to kind of act on time, is what the irony is. But usually I think it is a big blessing to be able to predict the water flow 7 days in advance, or even extreme weather events. Uh, 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 No, no, data set is there
Maps is
via the
available.
Google Earth
Yes.
engine. So
Yeah.
if you use the Google Earth engine, you will start finding all of these data in layers. Like for example, another area which is not very common in India is wildfires, right? Globally, wildfires, if you are able to predict the surface of how bad the wildfires may get. So that's also, so all of these are actually layers inside the Earth engine, and then you can use and build models on top of that.
I
I
think
think
that
so,
there is
yeah.
always a free tier, but if you're using beyond a certain level, then it does get paid because
Correct.
I mean you cannot be hitting the server million times a day and then so there is always a free tier. Yes.
I have a question. So you are saying that your model can predict floods before, I mean, 7 days in advance.
Correct.
And then if, and you are saying that this was built from India, you learned it from Bihar and then you have globally scaled it up.
Yes.
So if you are predicting, your model is predicting floods in India, for example, the recent floods and landslides which happened in Kerala, why don't you just inform people that,
See,
okay, there is,
there is,
please let
yeah,
me
yeah.
complete this question. It's an ethical and maybe. So what prevents you from pushing such a message to the people so that they can be alert? Because if I go to Cochin, immediately Google will push that, are you interested in staying this particular hotel? So it's as simple as that. What prevents you from informing people this?
There are weather forecasts that are published every day. There are weather forecasts that are published 1 week out. In fact, like if you look at your phone, there is a default weather. There are, we work with AccuWeather. If you go to AccuWeather, it is fairly reliable data when it comes to predicting 10 days out or 7 days out, or it does have that information.
See,
So it is not.
yeah, the idea is that it is not always running, right? So it is not that throughout the world we are trying to find out areas wherein it will flood next.
So yeah.
Right? It is, we have to work with the governments to first get some of the initial set of data, then we have to combine it with weather data, weather forecast, and then the topology of that area, and then probably start building those models. So a lot of partnerships with the governments to get more and more richer data is also required.
So it's not like we are always running this engine, right? So it's not like we are constantly running this that, okay, is Bangalore going to flood today? There is a lot of data processing that goes into it. And it's not like we know every day, because we are not in the weather prediction business. We will, I mean, if we were in the weather prediction business, we would probably run it 24/7 for every area of interest. You have to understand that each of these things, running each of these things takes server capacity. Okay, and you should not be running this globally for every latitude and longitude I mean, that would be a huge waste of energy if you think about it. We run it specifically for the area where we have a partnership, where we are getting active data, where there is a request, and we don't run it 24/7 for every region.
I understand the complexity. Okay, so if you have developed the tool, someone has to use it.
Correct,
Maybe
correct.
Google is not the right person to
Correct.
ask that why this tool is not used. So I'm just deviating from the question. So that so what are the prerequisites? Because you have developed couple of tools or couple of tools. One is which is a very much a global level for on flood prediction. One is very specific on health, and you have also worked with some small area. So my question here is, what are the prerequisites that are required to develop a AI-based social good tools? Or
Okay.
and what are the resources that is needed? I mean, in terms of human capacity, in terms of revenue or money, what are the kind of things? So if you give us.
Right. So I think this is an excellent question. You know, what we're trying to highlight in this session is all the different tools and options. But you know, how do you actually use them, and how do you bring it all together? So first of all of these things are available in our Google API. So if you just search for Google APIs, you will get a whole website that tells you about what are the different APIs available, what are the different data sets available. It's a little bit hard to dig because there are thousands of different APIs and thousands of different applications. I just tried to highlight a couple of them that would be most relevant. So you could look at geo data, which is Earth Engine data. You could look at the language model data. If you want Indian languages, you could look at Bhashani based data, things like that. Now, what do you need to bring it all together? It really depends on the application you're trying to build. If you're trying to build a simple chatbot, you probably won't even need a developer. You can have someone who has done some fundamental training on how to use these tools and put it together. If you're trying to build a very, very sophisticated prediction system, you probably need an ML engineer to sit down and actually, you know, get that sensitivity and the right kind of tuning in place to give you that prediction. So it really depends on what you're trying to build, but there are options. Like I said, there are no code options, and then there are low code and high code options. It would depend on what application you're trying to build, what sensitivity you want, what scale you want, all of that. And of course, you would need some kind of capital, because I mean, none of these things would work on you. I mean, you will need to have a team and things like that. So yeah, for most of these things, there is always a free tier of usage. Even for all of our language models. In fact, there's an open source version as well, Gemma. I talked about Gemini, which is the commercial version, but there's Gemma. Gemma is completely open source. You could download the code. Assuming you have some developers working with you, you could download the code and build it for yourself and change it or whatever you like.
In fact, the pricing today, if you look at the pricing, right, let's say 1,000,000 tokens, you are providing a context of 1,000,000 tokens to the 1.5 Gemini Pro model, it's 30 rupees or 30 or 40 rupees, 60 cents for 1,000,000 tokens. So today, the barrier and the capital required to build something is absolutely the lowest it has been, right? So you can build bots, you can start integrating tools, you can do a lot of things from these language models and at a very, very low cost.
Just a follow-up question to this. So if you have to build anything which is very much customized, for example, this is a discussion, entire discussion on livelihood, skill building, especially, and if we need to build something on skill building.
Are we out of time?
Can I just complete?
No, no, you have time.
Yeah. So if we have to build something on very customized on skill building or even for livelihood, does this
there is some basic API. If you want to customize on top of that, you will have to build, you will have to develop.
So if let's say you have an app and yeah, it's
So
pay as you go. So as like it's based on the token, then I said, right? If you have an application and you want to add a feature or you want to enable speech to text, text to speech, or give more creative answers, that is all quite reasonable today, and it is, you should be able to get started.
We are also seeing a lot of movement on open source models. So in fact, but open source models typically require a developer community to really enable it, to run it on your server and things like that. But a lot of people start with open source, it's 100% free, and then build it from there. Otherwise, if you want to use some of these APIs, as I said, you can start with the free tier and then take it from there.
So you
It
don't need,
depends
yeah.
on the no, so there are different kinds of models. Okay, since you got me started, there is in fact, this is a whole area of research, is whether you need to have really large models or even small models do the job for you. And the answer is, what is the use case that you're trying to do? So there are models, there are entire language models that will run just with the power of your phone. You will not need a server. In fact, we are launching these models into Pixel phones, in the new range of Android phones that we are launching. So there are very, very lightweight models. We are also seeing that in some domains, very light models trained on much fewer parameters are doing 80% of the work just fine. So if your application is where you are okay with that 20% range of error, you can do this very, very cost effectively, very, very compute efficiently. But that last 20%, last 10%, if you really want that, so for example, if you're a financial services firm and it's going to be a legal problem if you don't get that 99% accuracy, then you want to go into the custom models and all of that stuff. So really, when you're getting started, I would not start with custom model fine-tuning and all of that supervised learning. I would not worry about that. Start with the basic free tier default, try it out and iterate. Most of the times we've seen success when people start with a baseline and then learn from it and go forward. Don't try to build something complicated from the get-go. It may not even be necessary.
Yeah, in fact, I think these are quite bigger models, and you can almost do 80 to 90% of your use cases using very, very simple. You don't need a server or a compute capacity. You need a way to kind of consume these APIs, and that's it. So you can ask the questions like you do from gemini.google.com. You ask it programmatically from your app. That's the only thing that you need, and you can start solving and adding very, very interesting use cases to your application, to your users, and so on. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there's one more data set. I don't know, should we talk
Yeah,
about this or
we could just.
Okay, yeah. So we also have data sets. So again, in the maps, in the Earth engine, I would really encourage you to explore that. That itself can be a whole session. There is a lot of data around the solar potential of specific locations. And in fact, we've used this for installation of solar panels. So this is definitely an area where most countries are actually looking into. So you can actually, using just Earth engine data, you can identify which location is suited for installing solar panels, what kind of solar panels, what direction, what height, and all of these things. In fact, a lot of barren land is being converted using this solar API. This is a specific API that we published to our Earth engine. So anyone in the energy or the climate domain can look into this particular API.
Yeah, I think this shows.
All right, yeah, so this is just a small example of how it works. There are different kinds of layers and different kind of parameters by which you can control. So this example here is Mountain View Public Library. I want to highlight that this data is available globally. So for any location in India, you could actually go and check the solar potential of that area. The specifics of dollar value that you will earn from that solar, that part is not built in for the Indian ecosystem, because India doesn't have that kind of a system yet. Do you want to share about the bidding platform?
Yeah, so I think a lot of green energy players today essentially are using solar, wind, and a lot of green energy forms, right? But the biggest problem today, including somebody like Adani or somebody in Europe, is that there is no storage to store that energy, right? So if you're able to predict that how much energy will be generated using that windmill or a solar farm or something else, right? You'll be able to kind of bid the right amount to the exchange. So there is an exchange for green energy that you can tell the government that, okay, I don't have so much storage, so I'm willing to give you the energy that I've produced at a much cheaper price, because anyways it is going, it will go waste, right? So there are a lot of interesting use cases that are coming up from a green energy, solar, wind, all of these forecasting models to predict how much energy for a specific area will be generated.
I think this is not exactly a mature area in India right now, but I'm personally very hopeful that once this comes up, India has so much potential with solar that we should be able to do a lot of good things with this. All right. Okay. So with this, we come to the group activity section. So this is how we're going to run it. We want all of you to first of all start talking to each other. So form groups of 4 or 5 or 3. Whoever is around you, form smaller groups, and introduce yourself. I do feel that people need to learn from each other and all of that. So we'll give you a little bit of time to talk. Introduce yourself, discuss a potential AI use case for social good that you want to work on or you're interested in exploring. All right, so we'll do the discuss phase for 10 minutes. And then after that, we'll ask you to use the QR code. And we have a Miro board link over there. Do you guys know what's a Miro board? How many people know what's a Miro board?
Yeah, something.
Okay, all right. So Miro board is basically just what Suchit is showing over there. You can just, once you click on that link, you'll see something like that. You just create a sticky note. And on that sticky note, you write your name, you write your company, some way for people to find you and identify you. And write down the summary or some kind of a value proposition for your idea. All right? If you want, you can do this at an individual level. I was just worried there'll be like 100 ideas. That is also okay. That is okay. I mean, Miro does handle more than 100 parallel connections, so that's okay. But we just need it to work until the end of the day. If it works until the end of the day, we're going to take this data and we'll publish it with Nudge.
All of these apps, actually, the ones with the sticky notes, they have written that they're phasing out in October.
Yes.
That's the notification.
Okay.
Yeah, we were going to use Google Doc.
Go back to them, they say, no, अभी तो चल रहा है, तो चलाते रहो.
तो आज सुबह ही मैंने चेक किया, अभी तो चल रहा है तो चला लेते हैं. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
yeah. Yeah, if you think your idea is super confidential, please don't put it here, because this is going to be visible to everyone in this group, as well as we'll be sharing it with Atul and his team to look at the potential of that idea for carrying it forward. All right, so let's go. The timer already started. Can we restart the timer so that people get 10 minutes, talk to each other, introduce yourself. The reason I'm encouraging discussion is because I've generally seen you come up with better ideas when you bounce ideas of each other instead of just doing this yourself.
मैं timer कर देता हूँ. 10 मिनट का ना, I'm starting now.
वो कहाँ गया?
अच्छा, वो इसमें है ना नीचे. अच्छा, ये रहेगा. तो क्या करूँ? Restart कर दूँ? ये पीछे. इधर है पीछे. ठीक है, हो गया. Restart हो गया. अभी time is 5:36, 5:40. 10 मिनट ही है हमारे पास टोटल. 3:50 से 5. अच्छा नहीं, हमारे पास 6 o'clock तक का टाइम है. अभी तो है ना टाइम, तो काफ़ी 20 मिनट है. वो तो आफ्टर द रूम Q&A कर सकते हैं. Hello, hi, Suchit.
I have to meet you out.
So I think a bunch of people are saying that they're having issues connecting. Some people probably want to try from their laptop or a bunch of things. So we'll keep the Miro board open until maybe tomorrow morning, and then we'll collate the material and send it to the Nudge team. But we should conclude this session now. I was really hoping that of all the ideas that we have, maybe one or two people can just come and present or share their idea over here. Maybe I can call whoever is Mr. Vivek Sharan. Mr. Vivek Sharan? Yeah. But why don't you come here on stage? And I really like the thinking and the way you've put your idea.
Thank you. I am Vivek from Water for People. Actually, this is just a wild idea when I was just was first listening about this AI. So actually, Water for People, in which I am working, is working on water and sanitation, and recently we also included the climate change. So we are working closely with government. And in water and sanitation, as you know, after Jal Jeevan Mission and pipe water schemes, the installations are there. If I talk about Bihar, it is about 98%. I'm working in Bihar. So it is about 98% installations is there, infrastructure there, but there is problem of services. So if we can use AI, where the problem lies, and on that basis, if we can go forward, who are the service providers who can work on those services. And those service providers, if we got the data, which type of services, which type of capacity they need for doing those services, providing those services to the community. So we can generate some training modules on that basis, and we will train them in collaboration with government. So on that basis, and in this, I think the AI will help through generative ideas and data and all those things. So this is my idea. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think what I really loved about Vivek's idea was that it's very doable. You know, it's not a completely far-fetched idea. It's very doable, and it can really have impact and scale. So thank you for sharing. We will have one more person sharing their idea, and then we'll close the session. We're really at the end. Please do.
So in India, approximately about 3.5 million units of blood shortage we face every year. And as per the last report, we accessed about 1.45% population donate blood regularly. And if just 0.75% population donate blood every 3 months, we will not have any shortage. So India faces two issues. One, not enough people donate blood. The second, not every hospital and blood bank has the separation machine. What do we mean by separation machine? Whenever you donate blood, it converts into 4 parts: white cells, red cells, plasma, and platelets. So for example, a cancer patient and a dengue patient needs platelet, and if hospital does not have the separation machine, the blood bank will extract platelets from the blood and infuse it in the patient, and the rest of the blood will go into the dustbin, right? But if we have the separation machine, the moment in any blood donation camp blood is collected, they will immediately separate all the parts and keep it in their freezer or based on their shelf life. So these are the two problems we are facing. We tried to do this intervention back in 2017 with Facebook. Some of you remember, Facebook developed a blood donation tool. You all must have received some notification some time back that somebody needs a blood donor. We were their India partner that time. And later, while testing the tool, we found that the blood banks is the real user for this tool. So if we can have some AI now, where we can give the access to all the blood banks, because they know the data, that for example, in July and August, we will need more dengue patients, and these many donors would need platelets infusion. This is the time when we have certain diseases and you need certain part of blood. And based on their last 5 years or 10 years history, for every disease they can map out that in next 7 days or next 15 days, this much blood would be required and this kind of blood would be required. And if we can map all 3,500 blood banks in India, where we know that in which blood bank, which part is available, where the person can simply go and collect it. I think if we can have this with AI, it can solve a major issue in India. Thank you very much. And we run India's first phone blood helpline, which runs from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If anybody who needs a voluntary blood donor, feel free to call us. Our helpline number is 8375 860 860. Thank you very much.
All right, so that was a very inspiring story. When he started with blood, I didn't know where we were going with it, but really, I mean, it can really have impact and change lives. All right, so with that, we conclude the session, but as the hashtag goes, the charcha continues. So please, I do hope you found this AI session helpful. Take some of these ideas, take some of the friends that you have made here, and please continue the charcha, continue the projects, and hopefully we will all together create a lot of positive impact with tech for good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely really, really great and really good learning, I'm sure, for all of us. It was a very impromptu boot camp you ran, like almost what we do with a lot of our social entrepreneurs. And I'm sure there's a lot of amazing ideas that were discussed. Thank you so much, Amruta and Suchit. Really, really appreciate it. I'm going to request all of you to please use the QR code at the back of the agenda to share your feedback. It's really, really valuable to us. So scan it and just take out 5 minutes to share your feedback. Once again, a round of applause for both of these two. Yes, and we just have a small token for both of you as a thank you. So while we are done here today at this venue, please join us at the Stein Auditorium at 6:30 for a performance by Malini Awasthi. Looking forward. Thanks, everyone.